What if I told you that right now, at this very moment, something is burning inside your body? Not a fever, not pain you can feel, not something your last blood test caught. A slow, invisible, silent fire, and it has been burning for years. And the most terrifying part? Most people over the age of 60 are feeding that fire every single day with the foods they eat, the habits they keep, and the supplements they've been sold. I've spent 25 years as a physician and researcher. I've sat across from thousands of patients, people just like you, people who were doing everything they were told, taking their medication, eating what they thought was healthy, and still declining, still in pain, still foggy, still exhausted. And when I looked deeper, the answer was always the same thing: chronic inflammation. Not the inflammation you get from a cut or a bruise. That kind heals. I'm talking about a different beast entirely. A low-grade constant, systemic fire that researchers at the Mayo Clinic now believe is the root driver behind Alzheimer's disease, heart failure, type 2 diabetes, and the kind of muscle loss that quietly steals your independence and lands people in nursing homes years before their time. And here's what nobody in a white coat is telling you during your 15-minute appointment. There are 5 foods, ordinary, inexpensive foods you can find at any grocery store, that have been scientifically proven to extinguish that internal fire, to rebuild what inflammation has damaged, and to restore the biological environment your body needs to actually heal. Today, I'm counting them down, from number 5 to number 1, ranked from powerful to absolutely extraordinary. And I need you to stay with me all the way to the end, because number 1 is going to completely change the way you think about food and medicine. Most people eat it wrong. Most people eat it at the wrong time. And here's the part that will shock you. Most people are literally throwing away the single most medicinal part of it. So don't go anywhere, because what's coming next could be the most important health information you've encountered this year. But before we begin, drop a comment right now. Tell me your age and tell me your single biggest health concern. Whether it's joint pain, brain fog, low energy, heart health, or something else. I personally read every single comment. Every one. Your story matters, and it shapes everything I create on this channel. Let's begin. Number 5 surprises nearly everyone who hears it for the first time. Extra virgin olive oil. Now, before you think you already know this one, stop. Because I promise you, you don't know what researchers at the University of Pennsylvania discovered about what happens inside the aging brain when you consume exactly 1.5 tablespoons of high-quality extra virgin olive oil every single day for 6 months. The study tracked 94 adults between the ages of 55 and 80. What they found was extraordinary. Daily olive oil consumption improved blood flow through the tiny vessels of the brain by 34%, and it reduced levels of a key inflammatory messenger in the aging body, a compound called interleukin-6, by an average of 28%. Now, why does this specifically matter if you're over 60? After the age of 60, your body's natural anti-inflammatory systems begin to malfunction. Think of your immune system like a sophisticated thermostat. When you're young, it fires up to fight infection, then cools right back down. But as you age, that thermostat gets stuck. It keeps producing inflammatory signals long after any threat is gone. Scientists call this inflammaging, and it's one of the most dangerous and least discussed biological processes happening inside the bodies of aging adults right now. Here's what makes extra virgin olive oil so uniquely powerful against it. Deep inside this oil lives a compound called oleocanthal. And oleocanthal works at the molecular level almost identically to ibuprofen, blocking the same inflammatory enzymes through the same biological pathway. The critical difference? Ibuprofen comes with a long list of risks for older adults: stomach bleeding, kidney stress, blood pressure effects. Oleocanthal has none of those risks, and it works every single day you consume it, quietly and consistently with 0 side effects. Researchers at the Mandell Chemical Senses Center in Philadelphia calculated that roughly 3.5 tablespoons of high-quality extra virgin olive oil provides anti-inflammatory activity equivalent to approximately 10% of an adult ibuprofen dose, naturally, daily, without a prescription. Now here's the mistake most people make. They heat it. When you heat extra virgin olive oil past its smoke point, around 375 degrees Fahrenheit, you destroy the oleocanthal and the polyphenol. The very compounds doing the healing work are gone, evaporated, wasted. Use it cold, drizzled over vegetables, poured over salads, spread over a piece of whole grain bread. consumed at your largest meal of the day, ideally alongside fat-soluble nutrients like leafy greens to dramatically increase absorption. The synergy tip: pair your olive oil with cherry tomatoes. The lycopene in tomatoes and the oleocanthal in olive oil together create an anti-inflammatory effect that research from the University of Athens found to be 37% more potent than either food working alone. And always check the harvest date on the bottle, not just the expiration date. The fresher the oil, the higher the medicinal content. Ancient civilizations used this next food as medicine for thousands of years. Modern science is finally confirming exactly why. Number 4 is wild-caught salmon, and I want you to think of it as your body's personal firefighter, one that not only puts out the flames of inflammation, but actually rebuilds the tissue the fire left damaged. Researchers at the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine followed 1,200 adults over the age of 70 for 4 years. Those who consumed at least 2 servings of wild-caught fatty fish per week had 41% lower levels of C-reactive protein, the primary blood marker of whole-body inflammation, compared to those who ate little to no fish. But the finding that truly stunned the research team was what happened to physical function. The regular fish eaters maintained significantly greater grip strength, balance, and walking speed. Those 3 measures are among the most critical predictors of how long and how independently an older adult will live. Here's the biology of why. Every cell in your body, your muscle cells, your brain cells, your heart cells, is surrounded by a membrane made largely from fat. The type of fat that membrane is built from determines how well those cells communicate and how they respond to inflammation. When your diet is high in omega-6 fatty acids, found in processed vegetable oils and most packaged foods, your cell membranes become what I call sticky and stiff. They produce inflammatory signals more easily, and they respond more slowly to healing. Omega-3 fatty acid from wild-caught salmon, specifically EPA and DHA, physically replace those omega-6 fats inside your cell membranes. They make those membranes more fluid, more responsive, and dramatically less prone to triggering the inflammatory cascade. After the age of 70, this becomes even more critical. Your body's ability to convert plant-based omega-3s into the EPA and DHA your cells actually use drops by nearly 50%. Dietary fish is no longer just a healthy option at that point. For many older adults, it becomes non-negotiable. I want to tell you about a patient of mine, a 74-year-old retired school teacher, I'll call her Margaret, who came to see me barely able to climb the stairs in her own home. Her C-reactive protein levels were nearly 4 times above the healthy threshold. Her specialist had recommended a second round of prescription anti-inflammatory medication. She wanted to try something different first. Over 6 months, we added 2 to 3 servings of wild-caught salmon per week to her routine, alongside several other changes. At her follow-up, her inflammatory marker had dropped by nearly 75%. She was climbing those stairs again. She told me, "I feel like I got 10 years back." That is the power of food as medicine. Preparation matters. Bake or slow cook your salmon, rather than pan fry at high heat, which damages the omega-3 fatty acid. Season it with fresh dill and a squeeze of lemon. Both contain their own anti-inflammatory compounds. The synergy tip: pair your salmon with a side of cooked spinach. The magnesium in spinach activates the enzymes that allow your body to properly metabolize and utilize the omega-3s. It's a combination I recommend to nearly every patient over 65. If this is resonating with you, if you're realizing that some of what you've been doing might be working against your own body, please take 2 seconds right now to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. We are building a community. People who refuse to accept that getting older means getting sicker. People who believe that aging powerfully is a choice. Every week, I bring you the kind of honest, science-based information that often doesn't fit inside a 15-minute doctor's. Hit subscribe. It could genuinely be one of the most important decisions you make this year. Now, number 3 is something delicious, and the research behind it stopped me cold the first time I read it, because it changes everything about how I counsel patients over 65. Number 3, blueberries. And before you think you've heard this before, I need you to hear the specific piece of research, because it's not the same story. Researchers at one of the world's premier aging research facilities, the USDA Human Nutrition Research Center on Aging at Tufts University, conducted a 12-week randomized controlled trial with adults between the ages of 60 and 78. One group consumed the equivalent of 1 cup of fresh blueberries per day. The other group received a placebo powder designed to taste nearly identical. At the end of the trial, The blueberry group showed a 25% reduction in the activity of NF-kappa B, the master genetic switch your body uses to turn inflammatory genes on and off. They also demonstrated measurable improvements in memory and mental processing speed, improvements significant enough that the lead researcher described them as clinically meaningful. Here's why this happened, and why it becomes so important specifically as you age. Inside every cell in your body are tiny structures called mitochondria. Think of them as the power plants that generate the energy your cells need to survive and function. When you're young, those power plants run clean and efficient. But after the age of 65, something called mitochondrial dysfunction begins to accelerate. Your mitochondria start running dirty. They produce excess waste products, reactive oxygen species, essentially biological sparks that ignite inflammation at the cellular level. This is happening simultaneously in your joints, your brain, your heart, and your blood vessels. The anthocyanins in blueberries, the pigments responsible for their deep blue-purple color, are among the most potent mitochondrial protectors ever studied. They enter the cells, find those reactive sparks, and neutralize them before they can trigger the inflammatory cascade. And here's the part almost nobody knows. Frozen blueberries are just as potent as fresh ones. The anthocyanins are fully preserved during freezing. A bag of frozen wild blueberries is one of the most cost-effective anti-inflammatory investments available to you right now. Optimal dose from the research, 1 cup per day, consumed either with breakfast or as a mid-afternoon snack. The synergy tip: eat your blueberries with oats. The beta-glucan fiber in oats acts as a prebiotic that feeds the gut bacteria responsible for converting anthocyanins into their most bioavailable, absorbable form. Research from the University of Reading found this combination increases your absorption of active anti-inflammatory compounds by up to 40%. And one preparation tip: if you're using frozen blueberries, let them thaw slightly before eating. The partial thawing breaks down some of the cell walls, releasing more of the anthocyanins and making them more accessible during digestion. Number 2, and I promise you one of these would shock you. This is the moment. Number 2 is turmeric, but not the way you've been using it, because there's a critical preparation secret that almost no one knows. And without it, research shows you're absorbing less than 3% of turmeric's active anti-inflammatory compound. You're essentially throwing it away every time you use it. Let me explain what's at stake. A clinical study published in the journal Phytotherapy Research recruited 120 patients with moderate knee osteoarthritis, all between the ages of 62 and 79. One group received 1,500 milligrams per day of curcumin, turmeric's active compound. The other group received ibuprofen at a standard therapeutic dose. After 8 weeks, both groups reported equivalent reductions in pain and inflammation. But here's the critical difference. The curcumin group had 0 gastrointestinal side effects, 0 blood pressure changes, 0 kidney stress markers. Every single one of those appeared in the ibuprofen group. A food produced the same result as a pharmaceutical, without a single adverse effect. The problem is bioavailability. On its own, curcumin is nearly impossible for your body to absorb. Research from the MD Anderson Cancer Center found that standard curcumin has a bioavailability of less than 3%, meaning 97 cents of every dollar's worth passes straight through you, completely unused. But there's a simple, entirely natural solution that increases absorption by up to 2,000%. Black pepper. Specifically, a compound in black pepper called piperine temporarily blocks the liver enzyme responsible for breaking curcumin down before it reaches your bloodstream. Just a quarter teaspoon of black pepper combined with your turmeric transforms it from a largely ineffective spice into a medicinal force. The second secret is fat. Curcumin is fat-soluble. It needs fat to travel through your intestinal wall and into circulation. This is why the traditional preparation of golden milk, turmeric blended into warm whole milk or coconut milk, has been such an effective delivery vehicle for thousands of years. The ancients didn't know the biochemistry, but they figured out the practical truth. And for aging brain specifically, curcumin does something that most pharmaceuticals simply cannot. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, the protective boundary between your bloodstream and your brain tissue. Researchers at UCLA's Alzheimer's Research Center found that curcumin reduced amyloid plaque accumulation, one of the hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease, by up to 50% in animal studies. Human trials are currently ongoing. Think of curcumin like an intelligent, precision-cleaning crew. Most anti-inflammatory drugs are sledgehammers. They suppress inflammation everywhere, including in places where it's doing necessary work. Curcumin targets specifically the chronic, damaging inflammatory pathway, reducing only the slow fire, while leaving your body's acute inflammatory response, the one that fights infection and heals wounds, completely intact. I had a patient, a 71-year-old retired carpenter, I'll call him Robert, who had managed chronic back inflammation for 9 years with a combination of over-the-counter pain relievers and 2 prescription medications. He had developed mild kidney function concerns, a known consequence of long-term NSAID use. We worked together to introduce a daily golden milk preparation, 1 teaspoon of high-quality turmeric, a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and a tablespoon of extra virgin coconut oil blended into warm almond milk, consumed each morning. Within 3 months, his self-reported pain scores dropped 60%. Within 6 months, his kidney function markers had normalized. His orthopedist, in his own words, was completely stumped. The synergy tip: add ginger alongside your turmeric and black pepper. Both spices work through overlapping but distinct anti-inflammatory pathways. Research from the University of Georgia found their combined effect is synergistic, greater than the sum of either working alone. A golden milk with fresh grated ginger added in is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory beverages you can put in your body. I told you at the beginning that number 1 would surprise you. I told you that most people eat it wrong, eat it at the wrong time, and throw away its most medicinal part. Here it is, and it is not what you're expecting. Number 1 is not broccoli, it's broccoli sprouts. The 3 to 5 day old seedlings that look like tiny alfalfa sprouts. They have a slightly sharp, pungent flavor, and most people have never heard of them. Here is why they beat everything else on this entire list by a wide margin. Researchers at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, and this finding has now been independently replicated across 14 separate studies, discovered that broccoli sprouts contain between 50 and 100 times more of a compound called sulforaphane than fully mature broccoli. 50 to 100 times more. Sulforaphane has been called, by the researchers who discovered it, one of the most potent inducers of the human body's own anti-inflammatory and antioxidant defense systems ever identified in a natural food source. Here is how it works. And this biology is genuinely remarkable. Your body has its own master anti-inflammatory switch. It's controlled by a protein called NRF2. When NRF2 is activated, it switches on more than 200 genes simultaneously. Genes involved in cellular detoxification, tissue repair, and inflammation control. Think of NRF2 as a foreman who sends 200 repair crews across your entire body at once. Sulforaphane is the most potent natural NRF2 activator ever identified in food science. A clinical trial published in Cancer Prevention Research gave participants either broccoli sprout extract or placebo for 12 weeks. In the sprout group, markers of oxidative cellular damage dropped by 38%, airway inflammation dropped by 54%, and systemic inflammatory markers, including interleukin-6 and TNF-alpha, 2 compounds closely associated with cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, and age-related muscle loss, dropped by an average of 29%. For adults over 75 specifically, here's why sulforaphane becomes uniquely critical. After the age of 75, your body loses approximately 35% of its capacity to neutralize a specific class of oxidative compounds called lipid peroxides. These accumulate in arterial walls and brain tissue and drive some of the most severe inflammation associated with aging. Sulforaphane activates an enzyme called glutathione peroxidase, which specifically targets and destroys lipid peroxides. This is a biological mechanism that the majority of pharmaceutical anti-inflammatory agents simply do not address. Now, here is the preparation mistake. And this is the part 1 promise you, the part most people are getting completely wrong. Sulforaphane does not actually exist inside broccoli sprouts, not directly. It is formed through a chemical reaction between 2 separate compounds, glucoraphanin and an enzyme called myrosinase. When you chew raw broccoli sprouts, these 2 compounds mix together and sulforaphane is produced. The problem is heat. When you cook broccoli or when you steam broccoli sprouts, you destroy the myrosinase enzyme. The conversion cannot happen. You are left with glucoraphanin alone, which your gut bacteria can partially convert, but only at roughly 10 to 30% efficiency. The solution is simple. Eat them raw. Toss them into a salad. Add them to a sandwich. Blend them into a smoothie. Pineapple juice balances the sharp flavor beautifully. And here's a technique that researchers at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, confirmed increases sulforaphane yield by up 400%. If you prefer cooked broccoli, cook it, Then add a tablespoon of raw broccoli sprouts on top after it comes off the heat. The myrosinase enzyme from the raw sprouts will convert to glucoraphanin in both the cooked and raw portions simultaneously. You get the nutrition of cooked broccoli plus the full medicinal payload of raw sprouts together. As for sourcing, many health food stores carry broccoli sprouts in the produce section near microgreens. But the most economical approach, and the one I personally use, is to grow them at home. A broccoli sprout growing kit costs under $20 and produces a continuous fresh supply every 4 to 5 days. So there they are, the 5 most powerful anti-inflammatory foods ranked and explained, with the science, the preparation secrets, and the synergy combinations that make them work even harder. Extra virgin olive oil, wild-caught salmon, blueberries, turmeric prepared correctly, and broccoli sprouts, raw, and with the parts most people discard. I want to ask you one more time. Drop a comment below. Tell me which of these 5 you're going to start with. And if you're already using any of them, tell me what you've noticed. Your experience matters here. It helps others who are just beginning this journey. If this video gave you something real today, share it with someone who needs it. An older parent, a friend who's been struggling, someone who deserves to know that the food they eat can change the fire burning inside them.